Dear all, who would have thought that changing the tubes and changing the capacitors would have such a great influence in the sound of the MP-701 in combination with the FM300A? I was purely shocked how much difference you can get when you alter. I mean, we know, okay, tube rolling is no secret. We know the one tube sounds like this, the other like that. But together with the Petit, with this Breitbandlautsprecher, the full range speaker, you hear so much difference. I'm actually a bit shocked. So, first of all, I will try to give you an impression chronically how I did try from one tube to the next. Then I will describe you the differences in the capacitors and the rectifier tubes. But please consider this all refers to the not only to the MP-701, the musical paradise preamplifier, but in combination with the FM300A. Yeah? So everything is about the impedance of each device. The impedance of the musical paradise together with FM300A is a certain match that will give a certain sound. If you have a different power amplifier, maybe this, what I experienced here, will not apply. Yeah? So remember, what I tell you now will be only about the MP-701 together with the FM300A clone. And yeah, we know this FM300A has a superior sound. Yeah? The next big surprise was that I tried tubes on the full range speaker, the Le Petit. They did sound horrible. Other tubes sound fantastic. But when I connected a regular three-way speaker, you know, the Petit has no frequency crossover, no network. Yeah? But if I apply this to a three-way loudspeaker, whatever, a Buchard, a Canton, ELAC, those usual hi-fi speakers, the tube that did sound on the Petit great did sound on the three-way speaker horrible. And the tube that did sound on the three-way speaker wonderful and perfect did sound on the full range speaker just bad. Yeah? So this was a huge surprise that the sound varies to the speakers. The one speaker will prefer this tube, the other speaker another tube. So for all what I will tell you now, we must consider there are two groups. Yeah? We must separate these two groups. One group is this your typical hi-fi speaker with a crossover network, yeah, like frequency crossover for the high tone, mid tone, bass. And the other group is your full range sensitive speaker and very efficient speaker that is more for, let's say, high-end application for the sophisticated people who can hear the mosquitoes laughing, you know. So let's consider that. I will tell you now chronically all the tubes I tried, how they sound, and this all applies to the MP-701 together with the FM300A for either a full range speaker like the Le Petit or for a regular hi-fi speaker, two-way or three-way. Huh? Yeah. I had in the comments on my German speaking a comment that said that the FM300A power amplifier is such a precise amplifier. For what do I need actually a pre-stage and pre-amplifier? It's not necessary. Huh? Bingo! This comment did exactly hit the nail, the point why we have the musical paradise as a pre-amplifier, because this power amplifier is so precise. What I want is tube sound. I don't mean this kind of extreme tube sound with blurry. That I'm not talking about. I talk about a holographic, precise, but living tube sound. Yeah, exactly what the MP-701 delivers. And what is the best partner for this preamplifier? A precise power amplifier that can exactly amplify this beautiful sound. Yeah, this comment really hit the nail, but yeah, I don't know why. What is there the question about? Actually, it's so clear. No? Good. The philosophical concept of this circuit layout of this preamplifier is the reduction of the influence of the circuit. So that means all parts I put in, the tubes, the capacitors, define how good is my sound. That means I can, if I put an expensive tube in it, I get a perfect expensive sound. Yeah? What this preamplifier is all about. Most flexibility, I can put tubes in that are costly and I receive high-end clear sound, and I can amplify it with the FM300A that has a very precise amplification. What do you want more? Wow, now the sun came out, it's got warm, and yesterday I did have to telephone quite a bit, so I did dare to let you wait. But a new day, a new story. Let's start describing the tubes. After which criteria do I listen and separate the tubes? First of all, resolution. Which tube has a good resolution, has a high resolution? Yeah? Second is the dynamics. Dynamics in the bass, dynamics in the mids, dynamics in the heights. Yeah? Snare drum, bang, and I must get the kick. I must hear it, yeah? Either in the bass or in the height or in the mids. The next critical thing is the stage. How well do the tubes separate instruments? Is the stage wider? Goes out of the, not only between the speakers, but to the full room. Yeah? Then the sound. Is the sound vibrant? Does it have body, mids with body, or is the sound more tense? Yeah, and dry. This is the criteria for the sound and the tubes. Genau. Then, as you know, most of this sound description I hear the best with the full range speaker, like the Petit, because there you really hear very clear details. But as I said before, I also consider the three-way or two-way speaker. And as we already know, there were some differences. The first try was the 6N1PVI. This is a low gain tube, and I wanted to see how does the low gain tube harmonize with the FM300A. It didn't at all. There was nothing. It had a good bass, but the mids and the treble was totally messy. Mids kind of no dynamics, and the treble was mushy and had no resolution. Blah. Then I did stick the 6N6PI into the musical paradise, and on the single driver, on the Petit high efficient speaker with no frequency network, I was immediately flashed how wonderful harmonizing this 6N6PI did sound. Perfect. The bass has volume and a sonor vibrance. The mids have body and full richness. The voices come wonderful, naturally, and without any unpleasant sibilance. Yeah? No matter if it's Lou Reed or Tony Braxton or Sheryl Crow. Oh, Sheryl Crow comes good as well. No. Or Grace Jones. The 6N6PI did bring the voice pleasant without any harshness. Wonderful. Hammer. The heights, the trebles, resolute, perfect, and there is still dynamics in the heights. Snare drums kick you really right away, and the Slave to the Rhythm from Grace Jones, or Talking in His Sleep, Tony Braxton, there's this drum set kicking at you with these, perfect, and it's harmonious. The sound comes immediately that you have the feeling this is how it should be and not different. I thought, later I tried the E88cc S4A tubes. They sound different. These have things that those don't have, and the 6N6P have something those don't have. So I thought, how about to mix? How about I keep two of them in the front and do the other in the back? You can do that. There is the front two tubes you must keep same always, but the third tube you can change to a different type, yeah, as long as it has the same voltage. It did not work. In theory, if you mix the types, you could gain something to add something what the other is lacking, but in reality, when you listen to it, it sounds like a schizophrene, like a crazy person. It's inhomogeneous. The sound, it's artificial. It doesn't please you. Never do that. I mean, you can try, of course, but it didn't work for me. Good. The second tube I tried was, it's the third, I can't count, I'm sorry. The third tube I tried was the S4A E88cc. This is an 6922WA variant from Europe. It's from BTB, a very, very good sounding hand-picked audio tube that has, the price is around the double of the 6N6Pi. And it has a very, very dark sound floor. It has a very dynamic gain, and it really promises, and it delivers. I put it in and I was absolutely flashed. Oh my God, this tube is marching through the room. Bang! It has a dynamic that really kicks you. The bass is a bit leaner, but it's very tight, really. And the mids, a little bit less mids, not so vibrant, yeah, but the trebles separate so perfect that the stage, the single instruments separate much better between each other. You can, as if you can see the gaps between the instruments. You can really hear, the first moment you turn this tube on, you can hear, this is a very high grade audio tube, and you hear a fantastic performance. Yeah? While the 6N6P is this harmonious, warm sounding, it's not really warm, but it gives a certain body that is more to the relaxed, but to the strong side. The E80cc S4A tube delivers dynamics and an experience of sound that will not let you rest, but that will wake you up. So for all of you who have the Petit with an FE driver, the Fostex driver with FE 103 or 108 Sigma, or a bigger Fostex full range driver, a speaker with an FE 206, 166, one of these that have a relatively bright sound, maybe this is already too much for you, except you like it. If you like bright sound and you turn your speakers in and you need tremble that really kicks you, then you like that. But if you have the Petit with a WK, as an FF105WK, FF125WK speaker, then this works for you. As I described you the sound of the tubes on the full range speaker, no matter if Le Petit or a 10-inch, 8-inch full range speaker, we will now talk about how does these tubes sound on a 3-way or 2-way hi-fi speaker that has a frequency network and frequency crossover built in that changes the behavior of the sound profoundly. First of all, the 6N6Pi that was so perfect on the full range speaker, so harmonious, On the three-way speaker, it sounds totally mess. There is too much mids. It's like a huge sausage of cheese coming out. There is no separation. It has the dynamics are not correct. It's unbearable. Bad. There is a tube, the 6N23P washcot. This tube, I changed to this tube. It's a relatively budget tube. And with that tube, everything changed. The bass has kick and dynamic. It's strong. It's not tense. It's very voluminous. Nice. A bit too much even. I think the bass was... who doesn't like a good bass? The mids are separated, fine and detailed, and the heights, the treble, is clear and sparkling. Wonderful. The 6N23P did perform in the musical paradise 701 preamp. Wonderful. Whatever the 6N6P I did do wrong, the 6N23P did perfect. Let me see, what did I write listening to this tube? Yeah, I said it's very homogeneous. It's the bass has pressure, forceful bass, more dynamics. The stage with the 6N23P is not between the speakers, but outside of the speakers. It fills the room wonderful. Then the next step, I used the E88CC S4A BTB audio tube, the more expensive one. This is the absolute revelation. The moment I turned on with this tube, the three-way speaker completely performed like a class higher. Unbelievably separation of the instruments, the noise floor. You can hear it's a very low noise floor. It has a bass, it's founded, it's profoundly standing on the ground. The stage is very analytical, and the dynamics, especially the dynamics. What is in the full range speaker already a bit too much on dynamic, that you really think, oh my god, this thing walks through the wall, makes the three-way speaker sound absolute perfect, because this kind of extreme dynamics this tube is producing, the SA4 tube, it fits perfect to a three-way speaker with a bigger elaborated network, as a frequency crossover. I'm in love with this tube together with a three-way speaker. Wow, it had on the full range speaker a bright sound. It's on the bright side of the sound. But in the three-way speaker, this is perfect, because the frequency crossover takes away of the treble. It swallows. You need a lot of power to get the signal through. Yeah? And this is exactly what this tube does. In the three-way speaker, this is number one. Wonderful. Great. Yeah, I think if you have a two-way, three-way speaker, hi-fi speaker, you are more budget orientated, go for the 6N23P. But if you don't mind the $150 for 3 of these tubes, I really recommend you go for that. This is on a different level. Traum. Great. Now let's talk about the rectifier tubes. As you know, this is a preamplifier. Yeah? What is the function of a preamplifier? A preamplifier amplifies. Amplification means you need power. The delivery of power is an absolute essential part of amplification. Yeah? So the quality, I was really curious. If I change the rectifier tube, will this give a change in sound? I heard this would be the case, so I was very curious to do so. In this case, what I'm talking now, I did everything with the full range speaker, because the Petit has a very analytical sound and you really hear the detail. I think if you own a hi-fi speaker and a three-way speaker, I think you will not hear so much difference, because the network, the frequency crossover, will definitely swallow details. Yeah, good. First of all, I tried the 5T4 steel rectifier, RCA, American rectifier from the old times. Wonderful. This thing has an absolute earthed sound. I had the feeling the moment this rectifier tube was in the preamplifier, the whole sound stage, the whole, if it's an orchestra or a band, somehow is firmly fixed to the ground. The wind blows. It's not fixed to the ground. The 5T4 has an very strong dynamical sound. It's very much marching. Yeah? The 5T4 is marching forward. I really appreciate the sound of the 5T4, and I really like it a lot. It's somehow it's my favorite. Yeah, I really like it. The second thing of the 5T4 that is really good is it's made of steel, and if you have a pet, a dog or a cat, or you have a small kid that will start to try things, yeah, grab. The 5T4 is not so hot. If you touch it by accident, you will not be burned. It's hot, but you are not burned. Yeah, and it's very robust. You can plug it in, and you don't need to be so careful. Yeah. The next tube I tried was the Russian, the 5U4G winged C. It's a very precious old new old stock tube from the old times, and this gives you very much the feeling of sound like you have silver cables in your system. It's somehow not earthed, it's more the sound is floating and everything is fine and detailed, and the dynamics are not so sharp. The dynamics will be a bit light, yeah, and airy. I personally must say I didn't like it so much. It's if you have boomy speakers that kick too much, then that would be the tube for you. But I prefer more detailed and more profound sound. Yeah. And the third tube I tried is the Linley 274B black plate. What does the black plate mean? The black plate means that there is a carbon powder on the plates. Between the, I think, anode, cathode, you have this carbon powder, and that gives a much better performance. This tube is absolute dreamy. It has the dynamics are very, very smooth, but they kick the sounds, opens up, the heights glitter. Wow, amazing. It's around like $50. 50 euro, dollar, whatever. The steel RCA is 20 or something like that. It's worthwhile to get it. If you consider the price, yeah, and you maybe want to spend more for the capacitors, the coupling capacitors, you can go with the steel 5T4. It's okay. But if you want to go the last centimeter, the last very step to the absolute wonderful sound, the Linley, the sound is very beautiful. The mids are very vibrant. It's just beautiful. I was really surprised how much influence the rectifier tubes have into the sound on my single drive loudspeaker. Yeah? If you have a very potent hi-fi speaker with a 2- or 3-way system that has a lot of bass, yeah, this your typical Canton, Buchard, whatever, I think you can go with the 5T4 steel, because these speakers already have a lot of richness in the sound. Maybe the Linley is too much in the end. So now we come to the coupling caps. I was very curious if the coupling caps really do so much difference. As you know, when you make a crossover for a three-way speaker or a two-way speaker, you know that the microfarad, the value of the capacitors, have the influence at which frequency you want to block a signal. Yeah? So what is a coupling capacitor? Coupling capacitor links the output tube with the power amplifier. Yeah? So this is practically the whole music, the whole sound will go through this capacitor. So this has a very big influence in the sound. And the capacitor that is stock built in, this blue one, it's not bad. It's actually very good. And I tried first the very basic Supreme Mundorf capacitor, and this was worse than the blue stock capacitor. When I put in the very basic, the cheapest of the Mundorf range, the dynamics was relatively weak and the heights did lose. So not good, bad. Yeah. The second capacitor I tried was a Mundorf Evo Silver Gold without oil, also only silver gold. This really changed the sound profoundly. It was like screaming, right? The dynamics was so attacking too hard. It was not, this capacitor is very good, but it does not harmonize with the musical paradise. It was absolutely too, Grace Jones' voice was just screaming. It was horrible. Good. Then the next I tried, this is Jackpot. It's the same experience like when I put the 6N6P the VI tube in. The moment I put this MCAP Supreme aluminum oil into the preamplifier, I have the feeling of harmony, as if this capacitor was made for this device. Very good, very beautiful. Suddenly the sound starts to breathe. The mids have sonor tremble, very beautiful. The bass fills the room and the table suddenly vibrates stronger than before, really. The stage is opening up, very beautiful. The aluminum oil, yeah, it's not very expensive, this one. No gold, no silver, it's just aluminum oil, but Supreme, the top range of Mundorf capacitors is Supreme. It's around $40. Here in Germany it's 40 euro, the piece. Put it in, didn't want to get it out. It's so nice. Yeah, ultimately, of course, I also wanted to try the recommendation from Musical Paradise is the classical Mundorf Silver Gold Oil Supreme. This is the best of the best. That's around 2 to 3 times of the price of this one, and yeah, this is fantastic. I put it in, and the sound is the stage. You can say this, the sound you get with this capacitor to the Silver Gold Oil Supreme, maybe 10 to 20% more space, more breath, more vibrance. Very beautiful. It's a bit a similar experience like when I put the Linley rectifier tube in. The Silver Gold Oil Supreme classical, it also fits into the housing from the dimension. If you don't mind, go for that, absolute. But if you have to look on your budget, the Evo aluminum oil is your choice. You have wonderful bass, you have a very beautiful treble, you have the voices are smooth and the stage is defined and beautiful. This is the capacitor of choice. I absolutely recommend. It has 3.3 microfarad if you use the Petit, and if you use a single driver speaker, yeah, because a single driver is relatively lean in the bass. Yeah? So if the normal capacitor in the MP-701 has 2.2 microfarad, yeah, but if I have a single driver like the Petit, I will use 3.3 microfarad. Why do I do that? Because it enhances the bass range. Yeah? The 3.3 microfarad unit, I tried 1.5. This is 1.5 microfarad, same type, 3.3 microfarad. If you use 1.5 microfarad, the bass is leaner. Everything else is similar. Dynamics don't change, but the 3.3 will enlarge the breadth in the space. Yeah? Especially, so my recommendation for if you have a very high-end, bright sounding speaker such as a single driver like the Petit, go for 3.3 microfarad. Yeah? If you have the hi-fi speaker with many membranes, let's say Buchard, Teufel, all this Canton, ELAC, this type with a frequency crossover, then go for 1.5 microfarad capacitor, because these speakers have a lot of bass itself. They are too boomy, yeah? And the 1.5 will reduce a bit the bass, but give a lot of air. Yeah? The moment I put the 1.5 Mundorf aluminum oil Evo in with my Magnat three-way speaker, yes, the room vibrates magnificent. Really, really great. So, yeah, that's my my final. Now we got everything. Tubes, capacitors, rectifiers. Boom. That was a lot of talk. Let's summarize everything in the end. Yeah, you have the MP-701. You use it together with the FM300A. Yeah, the first thing you do, depending on your speaker, you have a single driver unit, you have a horn system, you have a Petit or something like that. Go for, if you want to go on budget, go the 6N6PI, yeah? And go for the 5T4 rectifier tube. These two things is the first thing you should go for. Yeah, this is not much money, but you will have an immediately a raise in your sound. It's remarkably. Yeah? If you want to go higher, yeah, you go for the Linley rectifier, and the next step is the capacitor. Yeah, so when you already saw the difference in sound through the tubes and the rectifier tube, then go for the Mundorf Evo aluminum oil. Yeah? One thing I forgot to tell you: the 3.3 aluminum Evo oil, the height is too big for the housing. If you want to put this in here, it has 2 millimeter. It doesn't fit. So you have to put it flat. You cannot put it in like this, but you have to turn it like that, and you have to prolong the wire. It's too short. Yeah. If you put it in like that, it will fit. If you put it in like that, you cannot close the enclosure anymore. I forgot to tell you that. Yeah. And if you want to go the very last step to the absolute maximum possible, I would go for the Mundorf Supreme silver gold oil capacitor with 2.2 microfarad, maybe 3.3, depending. If you have a single driver unit, you want to enlarge the bus, you go for 3.3 microfarad. If you have already a speaker that has 2 bus membranes, that is already quite powerful, use the 1.5 microfarad capacitor, then you will also have better dynamics. Yeah? And of course, go for these BTB tubes, the audio tubes. If you have a 3-way speaker system with many membranes, this will turn on the light switch in your room, and it will also turn on you. Good, I hope you enjoyed my description of all these parts. I hope it's not too confusing in the end. I'm not really sure of what I'm talking at all. And yeah, I hope you liked it, and we see you next time. Bye bye. Petit. And,